Guru Rana Mendra Kami Ataya Sanje Chudan Suji Chona La Chanju Patu Dani Jasu Dagi Shiji Jivi Sonam Ji Androla Benji Sanje Dru Shu Sanje Chudan Suji Chona La Chanju Patu Dani Jasu Dagi Shiji Jivi Sonam Ji Androla Benji Sanje Dru Shu Sanje Chudan Suji Chona Chanju Patu Dani Jasu Ji Dagi Shiji Jivi Sonam Drola Benji Sanje Druva Shu La Dan La Me Da Mian Chi Ong Bo De Jie La Su Xue Xue La Chaba Chaba Sanje Sumba De Du Xi De Juru Juba Chida Ji Tabi Chun Din Di Xi Dewe Jia Xin Yin De Ji Sa Yu De Juba Chin Chi La Ba Ba De La Chun De Xiang Gu Ba Yi Dewe Le Pen Jia Chang Ji La Su Sa Yi Mi Ong Bi Da Ni Le Wa Du La Ra Tu Be Song Ni Ne Jian Na Ma La Yi Ga Dan Lu Dan Ni Xiang Ga Tu Bu Wen Da Da Me Ge Na Zhuwa Gun Ji Zha Na Ma Ji Zang Ba Tam Jie Ge Du Da Gui Chi Den Du Kang Ge Den Jin Zhuwa Zhuwa Ka Ba Mi Ba Jin Xia Ba Me Ba Dang Me Ba Wa Me Ba Zhu Me Ba Zai De Tu Me Din Jin Zhuwa Ni Xi Xi Den Ba Zhu Yu San Jie Ma Na Jie Tam Ba De La Cha Cha Lu Se O Ya那有时间就没有个解释吧。他的俺谈出来就特别高的，科学那嘛叫我，马看什么间他们叫科学那东汉孙坚，俺们大把的呢，你都科学责任的来找一些，作为三届就恐怕人不去，今年讲拖把车，提起都。对吧？前面学生你们工农国际技能班的来把啥的第三把را学习哦呀。
So there's no need today to do a verse. Rather, we'll just go right into the motivation, which is that we should think about how ourselves and all other sentient beings are trapped in the prison of samsara and are tormented in this prison of samsara. And recognition of that with respect to ourselves as well as all other sentient beings, we should develop great compassion and desire to free both ourselves and others from the prison of samsara and to establish ourselves and all sentient beings into the perfect happiness and bliss of perfect awakening, unexcelled true perfect awakening, and thus with that motivation of wishing to achieve unexcelled true perfect awakening for the sake of all sentient beings, I'm going to listen to this instruction on the Mahayana Dharma, the Dharma of the Mahayana.
Oh yeah, that goes on. Oh, be true, Shandy, you are Suze, Kona Chaba, Suze, Kona, Suzeva, Kona Chabi, Jumanga, is. Dirwa,
no,
oh, Suzeva, Kona Chaba, Jumanga, is. Kala Kai, on Jurwa, Tinity, Silver Lum. Chiso Namla, tomorrow,
Ditchins, Gen Ditchins, Nipa, Zukze Neka Gawe, Chuck me Ripa. Nipa Zukse Negawe.
You mare, Suzeva, Sabi Jumanga was it? No,
Mangeba Mare Nipa Zukse Negawe, Chakpa Miripani.
Negawe Chapa Miripa, did it?
No.
Oh, yeah. Suze Negawe Chapa Miripani. Chula Yala Kinjamo. Kandang Agui Timona, Kenya Chela, what's that? Chita Yini, Jua Yinisi. That Pime Yitro Yagashi, never what Tave, Tela Chabariso Sena, Tela Chabariso Sena. Oh, Chela Yala Gun Zevi, Mokayin Bate, Chedan Tebe, Mayang, Ju Gula Tumo Yinas, Ju Shana Tumo Yina, Tumo de Yebe. 确了我在其他具体按照人把他罗是讲确了原来规则是看见我的图么呢，听你确了我在那儿，Yeah.
So this, the next verse that we've arrived at is verse 55, and someone might say, a captivating woman is hard to find, and since finding one is remarkable, it is reasonable to desire her. But the reply to that is, this woman, every part of whom is lovely to you, was common to all before. Finding her is not as astonishing as it is for you. When this woman, every part of whom seems lovely to you, was common to all before she met you, how can finding what is common to all astonish you?
Oh, yeah. 가서 배나 자오지 가서 예배 처럼 와서 기타 인디 기타 양이 좀 아니 뭐 타로스라 민주스체 대배라 자오 차지기 아니 비메 투모와 신예배 와서 넘바 신호세
So it's not so wonderful. It is in fact absurd. It is like King Udayana's amazement at his. This is here's his discovery, but I think it really should be like an achievement, obtainment of a woman who had been common property.
차바 미르바당 차비 연대 차바 연대 권이 계속 정도 제바 망해봐오 다 담보 연대제라 차바 미르바텔라 연대 담보 두바당 두발라니 도토네시 남바네메 아마음 지시라니 가시대 다디 비메꾼라 차바 미르장 라신 장와서 연대난 담바라 아니 차바를 소셔나
So then the next topic is that it's the negation or refutation of that it's proper to have desire for a woman who possesses good qualities. This has two parts to it, that even attachment to a woman that possesses good qualities is improper, and then the attachment doesn't occur just out of there's no certainty that one's attachment will occur in accordance with the qualities or lack thereof of a woman. And so then the first of these is that it's irrational or improper to have attachment to a woman that possesses good qualities. Someone here might say, although desire for women in general is inappropriate, it is reasonable to be attracted to a woman with good qualities, such as an honest nature. And then the answer to that is found in verse 56. If those with good qualities seem attractive, and their opposite the reverse, which is true, the former or the latter? For neither alone persists.
Oh, yeah. 대나 연된 덴바 두바단 도발라니 도토네 사디 가데 연된 난 덴바 아니 두바 문제와 대샤지 규다 이동과 대샤지 규당 도바 깨난 덴바라 아니 깨난 덴바니 가서 덴바라니 세상 그 규토네 도바 세상 그 규토나 연된당 덴바 코나라 차바 미르바 시간 도발라니 도토네 아니 차바 미르바다 찍라 림지 제니가 저 가서 찍라양 림지 제니가 타지도 나반내와 매배서 찍라 제니가 견다 연대니가 타지도 나와 매배 아마 연대난 덴바마 즉시 심마 견난 덴바라니 가식 되나 즉시 덴바 가베 타지도 차단 차바다 당와 미르소 스리가나 대신바래 주실라니 가시 댄스
So then the explanation of this is that when those with good qualities seem attractive and a cause for desire, while the opposite, those with faults, seem the reverse and a cause for aversion, desire for those with only good qualities is nevertheless unreasonable. For in the same person, both faults and good qualities occur successively, and neither faults nor good qualities alone persist. That is, the faults or the good qualities are not absolutely established. They alternate within even a single person. When someone first has good qualities and later faults, which is true or real? If one is real, the other the other must be false. Thus, both desire and aversion are definitely inappropriate.
Oh, yeah. That didn't be there. Kasa Sambola long to be Kawatang. Shangan to be say, Migawasin.
The example that's given here is like this analogy here. One feels happy enjoying a good meal, but unhappy going to the lavatory. Lavatory here is a bit more genteel than the actual, it's more like going to the outhouse.
吧？原来见了差不当，明天见马英把了差不马英把，其实中去把忙也把呢，临别殿下原来当，那把把戏来马街，你们把了就那么的，多把就那个，多把就来看了戏。原来当那把，刚才是个啥的？原来当那把。但比平面困难了，结束特别差不多没人把他是一个了，差不多没人把他。临别元旦当天把戏了，临别殿下元旦的天把戏了，没记忆是没人不给是吧？临别殿下元旦当天把戏了，没记是，我第一天知道了。元旦的天把平面困难了，也结束特别差不多没人把他是。临别殿下元旦的天把戏了，没记忆，今天那样，今那天把那样，俺那叫同学。
So then the next point is that it does not follow that only a woman with good qualities, because she conforms to one's ideas, is a cause for desire. For one sees that a fool's desire arises not only towards those with good qualities, but towards those with faults. So in the verse here elaborates on that, saying, a fool's desire does not arise, the verse actually states that in brief, a fool's desire does not arise only for those with good qualities. How can reason prevent those involved in it who don't have reason or without reason? How can the desire of those involved in it without good qualities as reason be prevented by reason of the absence of such good qualities? It's not possible. No.
Oh yeah. That didn't give me bala, Junamji, Doba Juya Kalashi said, and then that then be Jumebala, and it's Chaba Juban Namji. Chaba Doba, and then I made them be Julia Kalashi. What's our Mebalang? Never made citizen. No, married.
Because we see cases where it says here in the translation, the shameless are not consistent. It says here that we see in many cases people who, shameless people who develop desire for those who don't have any good qualities whatsoever.
Oh, Bena Transit money more, Pime Shenji, money more, Pime Shenji, the whatsoever, Anita, or. So
the example that's given for this is like the analogy of a Brahmin woman whose sex organs were defective, who cried because she did not experience the pleasure other women enjoy.
Oh yeah, that Lapa Shambi Pimela Chapa Miripani, and Sisi Shansian Majuna Tishitini Cheladu, Nangan Tanzon, and Pimini, Tatu Jan Song Cha. 平面去接我想，细心接不接我你太大明白，给我希望人那样细心，你得来接把们就完事情，太大明白，接我你太大明白，让他差别平面，但把人所嫌了哈。
So if one says women commit suicide when their husbands die, but men are not like that, therefore it is reasonable to form a relationship with a woman who desires one. And then the reply to that is given in the verse. As long as she knows no other, she will remain with you. As with disease, women should always be kept from opportunity. And the answer here is that a woman does not desire one alone. It's just not the case.
平面上可能来恰把没把他，平面其实接我先去若写完嘛就完就是接我先去若的写若人把写完嘛就把提示对你你确了你心度了，先去若鸟完了确样多了呗，俺把他准备平面里。 大多接我当，先去见了送我茶归来，一点没下我。
So then the elaboration on that in the commentary is that as long as she has not experienced the taste of other men, she will remain with you and be loving. But once she experiences the taste of others, she may even reject you. Therefore, as with a bad disease, since women must always be kept from opportunity in the form of other men, they are not to be trusted.
我本来尝试么，听到你节目台了，
The example it's given is like the following analogy of a Brahmin woman who did wrong with a man who was interested in her.
Luji Dangela, Pime Damba Shaba Chijilo Yambani, or our Luji Dangela, Pime Damba Shaba Chijilo Yambani, Damarangi Chawaka, Tilikambo Midena, Shirapana Troanam, Telashin to 2 million. Luji Dangela Lanzo Tala Pabi, Naza Tambo, La Deba Damba Shaba, and Shebe, Tetar Chava, so Yeshana.
So the next verse, here someone might assert that the translation says texts on social conventions. This really should maybe be translated as texts on worldly advice. Text on worldly advice. It's Nidhi Shastra or Luki Dencher in Tibetan. This recommend indulgence in sensual pleasure when one is young, and thus it is acceptable. And someone would say here, Dharma Rangi Che. Oh, so in Damarangi. I'm sorry, I'm getting tangled up, and the translation differs from the format of the Tibetan a little bit here. Text on worldly advice, recommend indulgence in sensual pleasure when one is young, thus it is acceptable. The answer is that it is inappropriate to act according to these conventions, this kind of advice, which worldly advice, which encourages one and others to act improperly. And so then the verse here is that 59 is that in old age one dislikes what one did during youth. Why would the liberated not be extremely saddened by it? Or you could even translate that as depressed by it. Why would the liberated not be depressed by this?
Oh yeah. 차제 남지 파마랑기 차와사나니 차제 남지 파마르 규비세 랑기 차왕 엠바 차와 강엠바테 아니 간비체 차자마도장 일에 템바tam이 미데나 굉장히 시다보나 아니 좋아 라좀바남 대자지 쪄바텔라 시도도시 매바 민주 시도 매바다 이중게 내 코나세베 달레스데바 방아차오 어데세라.
So then the commentary on this says that if the passionate in their old age, despite not having achieved freedom from desire, dislike the mere memory of the bad things they did during their youth, why would the liberated arhats or foe destroyers not be extremely saddened or even depressed? One could translate that as depressed by and deprecate such lascivious behavior. Since they see it as utterly reprehensible and a source of aversion, those interested in their own good should give it up. The example that's given for this is that during a festival, a woman absent-mindedly tied a calf to her father-in-law's neck because she was in a hurry. When he asked her what she was doing, he said, "What are you doing?" She felt extremely embarrassed.
주바 차바 미리 비든지 현대 마트라 나예베나네 아니 가서래다 담보 캐비데와 데바나 데위 초도 미데바테 마자발라 데메시 태양 류미 라메나 가예 따도 치조바 데이데와 진짜시 어디 가서 비밀라 땜비 대화니 영감나 대위 초인배서 감성근나네 영감나 대위 초인배 뒤뒤도 분명 송을 차고 셴나.
So this leads to the next topic. There's a whole lot of outline subheadings here. We won't go over all of those, but the topic of this verse is that since in the desire realm of desire, the bliss, pleasure that arises from, it says contact with women, but it really means like sexual pleasure is the supreme form of pleasure. But the text here demonstrates that that is not the case. And so someone might say, since pleasure in relation to women is the best pleasure in the desire realm, one should keep a woman for that purpose. And the verse here says, those without desire have no pleasure, nor do those who are not foolish have it. How can there be pleasure for one whose mind constantly strays?
Oh yeah. Kela ani de sungdwa. Oh, masha para temeshi ten lumi la mena kanyi da de chi chwa wa se de wa nga yong se. Kanyi da de chi chwa wa se pime la cha ba kang gi yi da de ne lu ji ten la. 아니 실수 초초봐 뒤 대화 초도 주와 진짜시 연바데 대화 초 민바 세야되라 강의 따도 지줘봐 대 대화 진짜시 세마 진짜시 세 되네 마샤발라 데메제 대 리메라메나세 비메라 마샤발라 텔라미비 대화 메신 차바 대 림보 멤버라 메나데 다 림보 멤버라 메베셀 So here
this verse is explained in the commentary by saying that how can the pleasure of one who desires a woman and whose mind constantly strays from reality, here that strays from reality means, actually it means someone who turns away from reality, is turn their back on the meaning of the actual nature of things. How can that be the best kind of pleasure or happiness? It is not the best. Those without desire for women do not have pleasure through focusing upon them. They don't observe them and then think, oh, this would be an object of pleasure. Moreover, those who are sensible do not have desire. Those who are sensible. Huh?
Oh yeah. 배나 치와 자유 좀 대바시 티체도 아니 동아 이름 뭐냐야 아니랑 그 대바 맞추바시노세.
The example that's given for this is a young man desired a king's queen, and although he experienced suffering for a long time on her account, he was not able to accomplish what he wanted. He never got any pleasure from all of the effort that he put into trying to get her.
단지와 비밀라 차배랑 권이 왕도 쳐봐 밑에봐 태라. 쳐라 귀신 다바니 모든 현지 쳐봐미. 내가 현지 마인신 요즘 되고 지시 내 가르송도 어서나 가대 비밀 나기 전에 네 마이히지 현지 마인노 시 제와 현라 차도 그 관에 어서 좀 봐. 디고데 되니 지시 인 메르 바타 세딜라 question 답안에 말어 오마디 등아 현지 마이시 용수 정고 지시인 즉타만이 어떻게
So then the next verse says, even if you make a woman your own, why keep her possessively out of jealousy towards other men with the thought that she is yours and no one else's? It's unreasonable or irrational to do this. And it says here in the verse 61, you cannot have intercourse constantly with a woman to match your attentiveness to her, or attentiveness you could translate as your devotion to her. Why keep her possessively with the thought she is mine and no one else's? You lustful person, you are not capable of constant sexual intercourse with a woman to match your devotion towards her in the hope of enjoyment.
Oh yeah, that's it. Killer Christian Dambani, modern energy trouble me, said the detention. The button that the Jatan Chella 롱제지 치도 비매라 윤도 그와 신도 나바니 아니 모단 현지도 체배관에 땜밥기 누워요 말이 세오 모단 현지 체밥매.
So it says here, you lustful person, you are not capable of constant sexual intercourse with a woman to match your devotion to her, the devotion that you have in hope of your pleasure, your enjoyment.
oi bena chamse meje nyambashi khasa sangla mawa thuma nyeji ani shenla yang jimbar meshi rang ja sam mani ja ani thadung lembashi no.
The example it's given is an old Brahmin whose digestion was ruined. It says weak, but here it says ruined. Got a lot of good food, and even though he couldn't eat it, he wouldn't give it to anybody else, but he took more food.
Oh yeah, that's what pime dan chebe de ju pime kona me de ba sai tim de tim do de ro ke isare suma pime dan chebe de ju pime kona me ma sai de ka de ja de yin na pime da gu gwe me ju ro de wa to ja xie ja wa ji da yan ne ma dong o so ji de na de ja la de wa je la ani pime me ba me ju we ani pime de ba cha o.
So then one might say, well, here in the world, the translation says conventionally, but literally it's in the world, the text in the world, desire is said to be pleasurable. And since it does not occur without women, one should desire women. And then the answer is given in verse 62. If desire were pleasurable, there would be no need for women. Pleasure is not regarded as something to get rid of. Here the subject outline is a bit messed up. Actually, it says this is third subject heading, but in the outline there's no topic given, so there's a problem there.
Oh yeah. Kade deja dewa inas, kade deja de inas. Ani deja jombi tapsu pime ta go me ba jua ta, pime ta go me churus. Go me churus. Jua ta. Dewa toja ino se shida wani madon de se. Dewa toja sheja wa chida yani madon wo se o. Dewa de toja ino sheja wa chida yani madon de madon we se.
So then, if desire were pleasurable, one wouldn't need women as a means to quell it, to get rid of it, for pleasure is not regarded as something which one needs to rid oneself of.
대치는 도시에는 아니 주의서 세외 제와단 차외 타오라시에는 대제의 세여바 보내 송하시노세
대교대
그래서
교대
이제와시 침도 쉬는 내지도 타와통 아니 현도 추통 아니 도시에는 주의디 아니 가서래 타와디 주의디 세와다 제와단 트라이스만도.
So it's like the following analogy. A hungry man entered a house at night and saw a pot of ash which he mistook for flour, and then he saw another pot filled with water. He mixed them together and ate it, and his hunger was gone. He took care of his hunger, but then afterwards he realized it was ash. And so feeling disgusted at that, he threw the remainder of the stuff that he had eaten away and left.
Oh yeah, that's what. 비매단 채비 디비주 비매 코너 밑에 반이. 비매 현지 전화야 대화 시간을 제주자. 제주 자문이 이시 number member 수시 진세. 비매단 제외 대화 중앙 시나. 와. 비매단 현지 제외 대화 디주 자문이 코너 이시 number member 수시 진대 태코나 멤버 타세 비매 현지 전화야 제주 많이 가서 자문 이시라 피메다 현재 좋아나 뒤대와 취미 이식이 유현을 줘 주나스다. 다 취미 유현을 줘 주나 때 지위시로 유현.
So then the next topic is that the bliss or pleasure that arises from sexual intercourse with women is not solely due to the woman. Here the person might say pleasure occurs through sexual intercourse with a woman, but the answer is that even in intercourse with a woman, pleasure arises from other factors. What a sensible person would say it is caused just by his lover. And the commentary explains this: who but a fool would say that his lover alone is the cause of pleasure during intercourse. The pleasure from intercourse is caused by other factors, including, and here the translation says, incorrect mental approach. I would modify that to say wrong judgment, incorrect judgment. Yeah.
답변은 시와랑 그 kin답지래 체도 주바시고 체도 주배 아니 고아시노서.
So it's like a fool, a foolish person whose wife made him work and made him work, and he was happy about that, delighted by that.
당하와 차전 양당 양도 비매디 텐도 예외 비매 텐도 예외 뒤 되자 미다바니 제보 출신 되자지 농배 대배규 미동 차전남라 제보달 섬전 동아 담바낭 어디 가도 대바 마기비 대화랑장 예대 대자 마기비 대화랑장 예대 차전 양당양도 대바 텐도 예외 실스 대바 마기비기 대화랑장 예대 차전 대자 양당양도 대바 텐도 예외 지시나.
So the next topic is that since desirous men are constantly questing, trying to get women, then the pleasure they get from that isn't something that ought to be cast away, and showing how that is not the case. And so the person might say here, sensuality does give rise to real pleasure because the infatuated seek sensual gratification again and again. The answer is here that they do not seek it because desire is pleasurable by nature. And the verse 64 says, blinded by desire, they do not see sensuality's faults, like a leper scratching. Those free from desire see the infatuated as suffering like a leper.
Oh yeah. 아니 내가 가서래서는 대자 대비랑시 임배 전도냐 많이 받았지. 아니 가서래. 제가 출신 대자지 세대가 나신데 차당 주세 잡아 소지 녀와 마동배 주세 대배. 제가 출신도 아니 대자지 로지지 미동배 세가라. 대자기 아니 가서래 레이지베 셰로기 아니 미동배 로지지 미동배 세가라. 동배 드비게 미동세 가서 로지지 셰로지 레이지베 셰로지 미동바모 롱배 아니 대자지게 마동와 이베
So then here the commentary explains that like a leper who, because it gives him or her a little bit of pleasure, keeps scratching at their leprous wounds without seeing the harm that it causes, the bleeding and the oozing that come out. Those whose eye of intelligence, here eye of intelligence means like your intellect or wisdom, is blinded by desire, do not see sensuality's faults.
Oh yeah. 차자나라 저어달 차제 동안 담바낭 세대 파바 차바단 차바나라 아니 저어달 차제지 가사 동안 담바나에 밀소세.
So then the second half of the verse says, those free from desire see the infatuated as if they were suffering like a leper. And there it says, the commentary says that since the exalted, the Aryas, who are free from the itch of desire, see the infatuated as suffering like a leper, desire cannot be pleasurable.
别那见不当，他怎么在见强点吧说在去社会，你就去玩那些人。
The example is like people who waste their time gambling, losing money, playing games that like gambling and drinking, which causes one to just lose one's wealth, one's property.
但你话女没上话通行都七八嘎巴了，他出去呗。 是吧？你没上网搞吧了，下巴搞吧了，出月饼那呢？他们平面的特别菜，第年我全部钱我随便，随便第另外个月我的，月我得我一把搞吧，哦，得我一把搞吧的，国民这边年那么了，每个钱我看穷哇，这里平面特别在身边规矩月我一。 是吧？他的德巴塔了，没上话越讲，这下头点把他们平面题，起码托话说句，也话随行，起码托话说句，也话随行，那样的了，对比什么为另外个要话的，德话引路线呐，
So then the next topic is that while one sees the body as being impure, having desire for the body, even during while you recognize or you observe that the body is impure, that you have a desire for it, there's a refutation of that. It has 6 subtopics that when one is enjoying sexual intercourse with women, and they do things which are repulsive to you, but or degrading to you actually, then it's stupid, foolish to take bliss out of that kind of deceptive sort of behavior of one's body and mind, physical and verbal sort of behavior like that, which and considering it to be blissful. And then, so the first topic here is as follows. It is given in verse 65. Some people assert, though sensual pleasure is unclean, bearing insults from a woman like being or being degraded by a woman, by like being spat on, and responding with flattering physical and verbal behavior is pleasurable for those that are under the influence of desire. And so the verse here which expresses that is that during a famine, the destitute, tormented by hunger, bear what occurs. This is how all the infatuated behave when they are with women.
Oh yeah, Mirides, Gome Jevanya, La Mugachawa Kanchua, Segana, Gome, Jevanya Banala, Mugachawa, and Mugachawa. 아니 추보 제와면 바타 그 렌자를 아니 예수 신장 렌자를 예수 예수 신장 치디 주세대로 냠도 예답 하나 예답 강청와 테니 배매대 태비지 차전 군기 류지 아그 요와니 베테단 대회 대화인베 대화 미리소서 테니 배매 태비지 섬여 군기 요와인.
The second, this verse then says that the way in which people during a famine occur, if someone is starving to death, then they'll put up with any kind of insults that are given to them by wealthy people that give them a little bit of food, even if if some merciless rich person insults them 100 times, they'll nevertheless endure those insults and that degrading behavior in the hope that the rich person will give them a little bit of some food later on. And so the behavior of those who are infatuated with sexual pleasure, with pleasure with women, is like that. Since that's the case, it can't actually be pleasurable.
Example
is given for that is like somebody in a prison who is thirsty and thus drinks the liquid that comes from cow dung.
뭐야 다 단니와 비매지지 개와 현라 차도 체배 비매지 대와 여바 가바니 제바야니 가지라 상강라야 차제신 비매라라 라차바 가시가라 차도 체 내가 비매지 대와라 차배 현라 차도 체바 통위치 비매지 대와 랑자바 여도 세나
So someone might say there is real pleasure that one can get from women because those who are attached to the pleasure that arises from women are seen to be jealous of others. And then the verse says that through arrogance, one may be attached even to one's own outhouse. Without being anyone infatuated with a woman will be jealous of others. So
나들라 지바야니 가지라 세든 디 비메라 때문에 대화 랑자바여 봐 민주바타 스와 비메라 때문에 대화 랑자바여 봐 민주바타 지바야니 가지라서 머지 지바이 추복하지 늘이시야 마주시 제 상강라야 차바 계신 대당자와 대단까지 비메라 라라 차바 가시 인보 매바 제왕 갈라야 차도 쳐봐 통해실 세가나 비밀라라 야차바 가시라야 차도 쳐 가시 갈라 차도 쳐.
So the verse here is explained that with the example of a rich man, a wealthy person who is arrogant because of their wealth, and such a person might be attached, possessive of their outhouse, their toilet, and forbid others to use it. Similarly, someone who is infatuated about a particular woman is seen to be baselessly jealous towards other men.
배는 자고 감고 제모 토만라 집에서 거리나 다 가시하고 뭐도 제모 토만라 아니 개모 추통도 많아 신호.
So the example that's given for this is there's a king, Gambhira Shikara, who was arrogant about his status, and he would not allow a serving woman to drink a little bit of water.
나들이 리미상와 도신도 비매지 리미상와 도신도 체차바 메리바니 미상와라 때문에 중심 초와 중르기 나마 군도 대전에 중화르바 마이노 세대기 비매지 리미상와 이양 대란대와 중에 차바리서 세나.
So then the next verse shows that while you recognize that a woman's body is unclean, it's improper to have a strong attachment, a desire for that. And then someone might assert, though women's bodies are unclean, desire is reasonable because they are a source of pleasure. And then the verse says, it is reasonable for confusion and anger about the unclean to occur. It is not at all reasonable for desire to occur.
미상와 도신도 차바 메르바 타하시 미상와 강변 지바라 아니 테마통웨스 미상와라 때문이 세대 미상와 강변 지바라 테마통웨 때문 중심 때문 중심 아니 중앙에 내배 초와 중심性是个 아니 중심 초와 중심이是个 중앙에 내배 초와 중심性那么给都예수 믿음에 대자니 중앙을 봐 많이 넣어.
So the answer to that is that when one realizes they are unclean, desire is inappropriate. When one steps in excrement without noticing it, it is feasible that confusion would occur and that the offensive smell could give rise to anger. However, it is not at all reasonable for incongruous desire to occur. Incongruous desire meaning desire which is contrary to anger or to desire to the offensive feeling you get towards that. So thus desire for a woman's body is unreasonable. It is like stepping in excrement at night.
미남 마도 미상위 너니 매바 중주나 강라 미상 중주바 테니 매바 치심 매바 치미심 리미상와 인양 지대나 견제 민배 매바 차와 마레 리미상와 인양 지대나 견제 마인배 매바 차와 마레 스나
So the next topic is that it's rejecting the idea that it's not something to be disparaged because it doesn't possess faults. And then someone might assert here, though the body is unclean, it is not considered to be objectionable because, here it says conventionally or literally it's in the world, from the worldly perspective, it is without shortcomings. It is said, Brahmins are purer than others, and women are the purest of all. And the answer to that's given in the verse where it says, if except to some people a pot of filth is objectionable, why would one not think objectionable that from which the filth comes?
Oh yeah. 지게도 아니다 참세 현래 참세장 현래 참세 남장데 비외 남지 비외 남녀贵了장 아니 현래 참세장 비외 남녀贵了장와 시差别所显那特米的
So there's a verse that's, or two lines actually that are quoted from some Brahmanical scripture, which says that Brahmins are purer than others, and women are the purest of all. And so the person who's holding that this desire is appropriate is holding that position and saying that's commonly known in the world. And the reply to that is incorrect.
Oh yeah. 미나마도 미상위 sem나도 미네비 미나마도 난주소 미상위 내니 아니 가서래 시도 매바 주와 주나 스나 미남 좀 미상위 내니 매바 중주나 매바 중주나 아니 가라 미상 중주와 테니 매바 치 미세시 류 가라 미상와 균도 중와 주와 되니 매버 sem나도 내가 수식이 준전지 미심데 미심 비매줄이 매저 많이 시차와 머리서 산
So then the reply continues that when all except for people who are not in their right mind, or you could say deranged, when everyone except for people that are deranged see a pot full of filth which is filled with vomit and so forth, objectionable, why would anyone who is sensible in their right mind not consider the body from which such filth constantly comes objectionable or something which is to be So the example that's given for this is like some lustful men who saw attractive qualities in a beautiful woman, but then they saw her as being repulsive when they saw her, or having faults, when they saw her carrying a pot full of vomit.
Oh yeah. Oh,
So the next topic is that rejecting the attachment, obsessive attachment to the purity of female bodies. And someone might assert here, women's bodies are clean because people regard them as clean. And then the verse explains that clean things are looked upon as the most worthless of all. What intelligent person would say that they are clean, that is clean?
Oh yeah. 비매질을 장화신도 여도시 런데 미니 강심마와 메르바타 메도단 지단 견라 소와당 오데 오버 장화 탐제지세 오버 장화 탐제지 타마당 타마당시 오버 장화 탐제지 타마 비매지 류당 태비도지 강도 미바 주비치로
So the reply to that is it is absurd for any intelligent person to assert that a woman's body is by nature clean. Clean things like flowers, perfume, ornaments, and so forth are looked upon as the most worthless of all when they've been in contact with a woman's body. Just as the sweet water of the Ganges River becomes salty on meeting the ocean.
Oh yeah, that is it. 你让我先被军在当然先搞罢了，送这个了。他谈不立即特别团圆是吧？你让我先把你特别蒙阿家是吧？刚是香港南都这批，特别把你明年吧，没让我一现在了，莫了特别叫我下。他的立即特别团圆其实绿了。 哦，要立即特别团圆，就绿了没，让我也多些呐，是。
So the next topic is additional rejections of the fallacious reasoning, which serves as a cause support for attachment, obsessive attachment to the purity of the body, which is false purity of the body. First one is seeing rejection of the idea, the obsessive attachment to the purity of the body through seeing arrogance in coming from due to the body. And here someone might assert the body is clean because one sees people taking pride in it. And the answer to that is given in the verse. Whoever has lived in an outhouse and without it would not have survived. In such a dung worm, arrogance arises only through stupidity.
Oh yeah. Ngane jesimba kanshi mayin adu. Ani mayin adu. Ande 어디 강시香港南都境在的啦，俺呢这些把강시 많이 나도 포화당, lon가 니지, lon가 니지 파를香港南这边南都境是一个啦，강시香港南都境，相于宁国来我吃我的没把你，他没把你没来吧是，相于宁国来我吃我的没把你没来吧，没上面是不得不太啦。 So then
whatever is born from the womb has lived in the mother's womb between the stomach and the intestines, which is like living inside an outhouse. Like a dung worm, it has been nurtured by excremental juices without which it could not have survived. Pride, thinking of that as clean, arises only through stupidity. It is absurd to be proud of that.
Oh, yeah. 대담지 개미리 바타로. 배나 시부 매상위 천바 주바. 매상위 아니 소소와시. This is like
the analogy which a young man had been put in a cesspit, into a pit filled with excrement and so forth, and there he lived on excrement during that time. Eventually he got out, but afterwards after that he had escaped from that. He thought that he was concerned about becoming unclean when someone else's clothing touched him.
가바니 시다 타강 개장 류진이 남부 장와를 면주나去年拿了白血把太大气肉拉马印我看的去了所谓绿了没上所谓绿了没上我帮没去也把绿了长我越多钱呐
So next comes a rejection of the notion that there is purity because we see people making effort to purify their bodies of the unclean portions. And that's given in this verse 71. Someone might assert that the body is definitely clean since washing and so forth removes dirt from it. Here I've kind of modified the translation a little bit, and the way I would read this is, since the methods you employ don't cleanse the interior of the body, you ought to make more effort to clean the interior of the body than the exterior.
탑 관계장 류진이 탑 관계장 류진 남부 장원 민주나 최진이 류라 장위 치도 바바체바 대달 류라 지위 주로지 미상와나 많이 있어야 되라 남부 장원 민주나 최니 나라 배체바 대달 치로라 많이.
So when it says, since the methods you employ don't clean the interior of the body, you ought to make more effort to clean the interior of the body than the exterior. When whatever means employed, such as ritual ablution and washing, do not cleanse the inside of the body, you ought to make as much effort to cleanse the internal part of the body as the external filth that has come out of your body. But so it would be reasonable to do this.
그래서 대라 장위 집에 봐 밀소. 배나 제장이 진이 빨라시면도 송화사 삼네 시디 탐제 린라오 양바상. 주시니 송화대 샤민기 빨라샤 냐바대 샤이노 난조 양배 류레 송화대 미상화당. So
the analogy that's given for this is there were two jackals sitting under a palasha tree, and a palasha blossom fell. One of the jackals thought that all of the blossoms were like that. The other thought that though the blossom that had not fallen was not meat, that the ones that were still on the tree were meat. This is like thinking that what leaves the body is filthy, while what remains in it is clean.
다시 뭐 장송가도 제지 표면주의 땜바 통해 표면주의 방자면 바꿔봐니 가대 재생신 대달 진전군라聪明나 재생신 지신 진전의 대달 물건 기본 주로 표면주의라 장송가도 제 남제장 매번위치 표면에서 방자 많이 넣어 세나
So next is a rejection of the idea that a female body is not something that one should get rid of, abandon, because we see that sages, ascetic sages, enjoy the bodies, female bodies. And so the verse that's given here, someone might say, since ascetic sages do not give up women's bodies, craving for women is not something to abandon. And then the answer is given in the verse. If like leprosy being full of urine were not common to all, those full of urine, just like lepers, would be shunned by everyone.
Oh yeah. And this is Montana, Pime Jinjan Yang, Zeshan Yang, Singira, Zeshan Yang, Chanson de Dagi Mubonwani, Randa Rashin Driver Race, Randa Rashin Driver Yindi. 아니 가대 재정 시 대다를 가대 재정 가시 코너를 여봐 신도 대다 진정 끌어 총바 멤버를 가시 코너를 연나 재정 나게 봐다 저도 쳐봐 치신도 나를 겁게 봐라 저도 쳐봐 치신도 진정대 대다를 대다 태매비 미끄죠 방와 주에 라시 총바 이제 싸면 많이 넣어.
So then the explanation for this is that although women are full of urine, the sages do not give them up because they themselves, the sages, are the same, filled with urine too. If only some and not all were full of urine, those full of urine would be shunned by those who were not, just as one holds one's nose and avoids contact with lepers. Women are not avoided because they are all alike, not because they are clean.
배는 바와 매비 매 바와 젠지 킹비 유도 침바나 tela sunga ba to ba shindo
Example that's given is a man that didn't have a goiter visited a place where all the people had goiters, and the people there thought he was ugly.
oje ta tini tela so wa yenbe ane zangwa xianba ga ba ni simba de da yala nya ba ga xin ni na yi chama ga chu da me san chi ji me do la so ba de ja ti xin de pime ji li me san wa yin yang chi la so be ze wa che ba yin be me san wa se ni so me san wa se ni so xian na
So then the next verse shows that it's how to eliminate this obsessive attachment to the purity of bodies that have been decorated with or beautified with scent and so forth, with perfume. Someone might say, though a woman's body is unclean, the uncleanness can be removed by beautifying it with perfumes and so forth. And then the answer to that is that just as someone lacking a part is delighted with an artificial nose, a substitute nose, desire holds that impurity is remedied by flowers and so forth.
Oh yeah, that did yala nyamba gashini said yala nyamba nadum gashini ani jiwi na yi chame na chame gawar kyushin lomba dar gawar shi lomba dar sem o yala nyamba gashi na yi chame gachu dar se chen me do la so wa me zang wa chi jewi ta me do la so wa lu la do xin ti guo ne lu zang wa ju ro nyang du ti xi du de be lu zang wa mi chu bo.
So it is like a man who is lacking a part of his body because his nose was cut off, and he's extremely delighted with and proud of golden, it says golden here, but I'm not sure if that's by an artificial nose, a substitute for his nose which he lost. Attaching flowers and so forth to the body as a means to remedy its foulness, and holding that this will make the body clean will not do so.
Bena chili na la mar gube kase gube changbu yang kase da dum padan dan ba sa ba shino se.
So the example is given for this is like smearing butter on a cat's nose, which makes it think that even a handful of bad food is nice, is rich and tasty.
Oh yeah, that's what. Kangla chata jeru bi yu te da zang wa xian ba ga ba de. Oh, kang du de cha cha jie ba, te zang xie xia mi ri la. Nge wa de cha ju ju bi, ngoi de kang na ye ma yin se ka la. Ka de nge wa cha ri bi, chi la so wa ye duo xian na, cha ba jie ri bi chi la so wa ye duo xian na.
So then next comes a rejection of obsessive attachment to something being clean, which actually would give rise to aversion for those who are free from that attachment. That ought to give rise to aversion. And then here it says, there are fragrances and so forth for which one invariably feels desire. And the reply to that is, it is inappropriate to call clean that towards which freedom from desire arises, nor is there anything which is a definitive cause of desire.
Never then, and deja juju o kana yaba me batas, never deja juju o de kana yama said, never deja juju o kana yaba me batas. Ani tar gula chatra do ju chidang gula chatra do ju chidang tar lu kang papa cha nam deja da chawa jewa te zang ji chawa mir ma zang ji chawa mir la de mir bichero.
So there's no thing, the reply to this is that there's no thing which is a definitive cause of desire, or which is inevitably a cause of desire, since in the end one can or will become free of desire towards all things. to call the body clean, towards which the exalted foe destroyers or arhats have generated freedom from desire, is inappropriate.
Pena chomba gashi rangi pomo mashi bise chapa jela. Shene chapa dan chawa shino.
The example that's given is, for example, a merchant who didn't recognize his daughter when he came home, didn't know it was his daughter, felt strong desire for her, but once he recognized her, he was free from that desire.
Ngawa tanya la de chiji malo ba shi se ta mitaba mizangwa da dungwa dame ba de ngawa tanya la de chiji malo ba shu shi yu o ji la se ba dan ba ni se no do na mita mizang dang dungwa wa da dame je chaba shi bu tam da ni jini la ni se ba juru mitaba la so we chiji malo ba la so ba shi bu de o ji la se dam yuan de min xian na.
Next comes that even the exposition that it's possible for a single thing to serve as the object of all four erroneous notions about things conventionally, that just conventionally, from a conventional perspective, it is possible for a single functional thing that produced from causes and conditions to serve as the object of all four erroneous ideas. And so the question is posed, is it possible or not for a single thing to comprise all four of these undistorted features, such as impermanence and so forth? And to retranslate that a little bit, if you ask, is it possible or not for a single functional thing to possess all four of the non-erroneous features of impermanence and so forth?
Oh yeah, dona mita bada, misa wada, nunga wada, dame ba je jawa shibote, mita bada, misa wada, nunga wada, dame ba shibote. Shibo tamjani o chini la seba chude kan duja kan yambate midate keshimare keshi chibangazo kan midabate ni midate joa jebishiro se joa jebishiro kan midawate ni tadi rabid midaba charani la jachongo jil kan midawate de dungawa yinde neba jebishiro 간 동아와테 남에 봐 인데 라완자 마인 비치는 달라 라완자 마인 비치 테나 랑기 리지 쳔비 코와 미자메 라신도 내와라 쪼와 제데 아니 타빌람 주바라 아니 가자 야 공도 미 가서 미자와 셰베 거와데 아니 라신도 미자메 라신도 내와라 쪼와 제데 아니 탈람라 주바라 좀 마차고 그래세.
So in brief, it is possible indeed for a single thing, a single functional thing here is referring to things that arise and disintegrate moment to moment. It's possible for such a thing to possess all four of these features of impermanence, impurity, suffering, and selflessness, all four simultaneously, because whatever is a product or whatever is a created thing, duce samskrita dharma, is impermanent because it is momentary. And what is impermanent is la mitapate ni mitakte kyo kipit. Kang mitakpate mitakte.
Kajima imesi mitaba chamulache.
Kyo kipichu.
Kang mitabate ni mitari joa kipichu chiwatene yung ane
So something that is impermanent, because it is impermanent, gives rise to sadness or disgust. And what is impure, something which is impure, is suffering, is of the nature of suffering because it causes harm. And what is suffering is devoid of a self because it is not autonomous. it doesn't exist under its own power, literally. It is not autonomous. And therefore, one's own body, it can be used as a symbol for samsara, where our own bodies, symbolizing samsara, exist in have this basic nature of impurity, and we ought to recognizing that fact, give rise to disgust towards aversion and disgust towards our bodies, and make effort at accomplishing the path to liberation.
Oh yeah, that is jela. Misanjara rani chibatar. Samjan namja teta shejana. Dola mi inje bebeje. La me chanju dula jamba cha segala. Ane misan wuchuba jara la rani chiba nashin. Samjan namja misan wuchela de chiba shene. Ane samjan misan wuchimba tela mibi. Ane tela drondu inje tene inje jene. 아니 대체도 나는 바양다 봐서 산주 주발을 좀 바쳐고래 세다 디바 두비수 쳐봐오.
So then there's a summary verse of this chapter that just as we ourselves are bound in the dirty, filthy prison of samsara, that all other sentient beings are in a similar situation. And having understood that, we should make effort to generate the compassion which observes beings traveling, migrating through the world, and make effort to accomplish unexcelled awakening. So this then shows the way in which, by observing how we ourselves are trapped in this filthy prison, that all other sentient beings are in the same situation, recognizing that, then observing their migration through the world, we make effort to generate compassion. That serves as a source of bodhicitta, and thus is the way in which we make effort to accomplish unexcelled awakening.
Oh yeah, that's it. You send the Zisman, you wish to be the Washington Yumbo. She told us, I want to buy Chijil upon what done by the Rabjis, Sumbito or Che. That Rabjis, you are. That the Jetam Mita Sajatam Jadunga or Chetam Jatonsi Tameba said that. She was the hotel. That's Tameba Terma. She was such a young or Tatan Daguar, such a young or Tatan Daguar, so me over Tembi Guane. Dancing Sigilo Ponto Shabala. Anita, Louis Shabala, Tendani, Chebena, Tambo. Ani Najaji Shan go be true Dambatang, not Dambatang. Ani Javar Shaba. That Tambo Najaji Shan go be true Dambatella. Dagam Dagam Chiba Siba Tamba Sula Juru Kaji Lujan Tamjala Unam Tamja Chungiro said the Imbada.
So next that then is the end of that chapter, which is just the third chapter of the 400 on yogic deeds, showing the means to abandon belief in cleanness, especially of the body. And the commentary is saying, goes over the same thing. And then this leads, so that finishes the section on, we've gone over the impure, how things are impure, impermanent, how they're suffering, how they're impure, contaminated phenomena. All contaminated phenomena are exist in that way. And then this leads then into the next topic, which is understanding how things are devoid of a selfless. And this fourth chapter shows that all contaminated things, meaning functional things, contaminated functional things are unsuitable to be held as being a self or being the possessions of a self, being I or mine. And by teaching that, it explains the way in which one gets rid of the erroneous idea of a self. And that this is subdivided into two topics: explanation of the text of the chapter, then the explanation of the name. And the first of these has two subdivisions: a brief explanation of the way in which one negates the apprehended object of pride, and then there's an extensive explanation of that. The first of these is given, first topic starts with the first verse. which is verse 76, which says, "Who that is wise about worldly existence would be arrogant, thinking I and mine? For all things belong equally to all embodied beings."
Oh yeah, that de la to send wa. 当这一三百重庆比年波呢，当这三百的家伙，俺帮这个年波的。俺那当面把蛋了拍出个日本把干呢，当这个相于日本干呢，他们蛋了拍个三百春季每年不的他们都会落地，但而且起码这个干的中国人是，但那你当成个三百春季这个年不马年吧，当成我就我十几年不个年不咱们的点过的是。这样看的人是呢，这当我有我什么什么等等。我让心去做怎么当？我有让心去做怎么？这当我有怎么呢？叫我了，我家写去呗，是的，等我让把跟我家写去，叫我了，我家写去呗，贴了咱们的，按照做怎么的是那都，还是大概娘车吧，是的。当你了对比七八元素多吧来。让现在让你了对吧？前面七八元素多吧来呢？那俺呢？俺大些打工打都真不当，有的当呢打给我娘都吃饼，俺家呢18年路了，18年路了，出行都生病，他把说了呀，就我的。아니 중앙치도 문제를 세대라 다감다 그냥 잡아 쓰바 담바 술라 줄 세대 말에
So this verse then, here the antidote which destroys the seeds of conceptions of a self is explained in the last 8 chapters of this text. That is there in the latter part of the second half of the text is given the actual explanation of the way in which the subtler form of the conception of the self, the misconception of the self and misconception of mine is negated through extensive reasoning. And so here, however, is given the antidote to overcome manifest or gross apparent forms of a misconception of the self. And this is explained in the text here in relationship to kings, kings are, and high status people are often very proud, and thus the conception of I and mine is explained in particularly with reference to them. So here then, when we think I and mine, King has a great deal of pride in himself. So by starting with the example of a king, it shows how that is sort of like a principal illustration of the way in which pride operates. And by considering oneself praiseworthy, arrogant pride arises, thinking I am the owner, I own this, which is a conception of the self, and these things are mine. These sorts of ideas occur for people that haven't understood the erroneous nature of that conception, and this does not occur in the excellent or noble beings who think correctly about the state of worldly existence.
Oh yeah, today, can't you listen to them? You're going to talk about children, said la, can't get China, you 가시라 요 가시도 저와 탐제도 안에 왕차려 봐. 봐. 저와 탐제도 왕차려나 대다체리나 양세. 저와 탐제도 왕차려나 대다체리나 양. 소소지위류전 탐제라 내라서 요 탐제 레왕기 림기 제자 준비치로 세도 되게 아니 유남 탐제 충치로 세대요. 예, 소소지위류전 탐제라 내라서 요 유남 탐제 라랑기 레왕기 왕그 림제 제자 준비치로
So, however, that sort of pride about things that one possesses is inappropriate, because all things, functional things, such as different places and vessels and so forth, are the same, in that through the power of previous karma, they will eventually be used by ordinary embodied people, ordinary embodied beings. For example, forests and houses are actually the common property of different beings. So, for example, forests and houses are common property. So then this topic, then, the method for eliminating pride or arrogance is explained in detail. There are multiple subdivisions of this outline of the text. We don't need to go through all of the different outline topics at this point, because they'll come eventually as we proceed through the chapter. And again, this is given in the appendix to the translation. But here, the first part of the extensive explanation of this is that, in fact, someone who is a servant is designated as king, and therefore it's inappropriate for such a person to be arrogant and haughty. And that's given in, here someone might say, since all worldly enterprises are under the king's control, pride is appropriate for a king. And this is given in the verse 77, where it says, society's servant paid with a sixth part, why are you so arrogant? Your becoming the agent of actions depends upon being placed in control.
Oh yeah, that day, Gawa Tambi Minamji, Mata be Salun Nubis, Taka Tambi got something you sell at then, Tabache, and she said at Mogoa. Then any Salu, Mata be Salu to Nubi Wodo, and she so gravy, and debut Chuja, and Langan Chine, the Bambu Jawason, I see Langan or Castle, Langan Chine, she soon will go about Jawoshi, said Mabuku Jawo, Senegala, that did that Tanashi Jorva, that the Lujijor, what then I do, soon will go like Jawoshi, never in bass. Jawo Chuji to Bachariba Jishi in the Mirbatas.
So then the reply to that is that at the beginning of the eon, crops were not even planted. There was no such thing as agriculture, because rice and so forth grew spontaneously or naturally without needing cultivation. But after the crops of wild rice, which were not planted by the people of the first era, the beginning of human history, declined, and land was apportioned, people began stealing each other's harvest. for protection, they gave 1/6 of their harvest as payment to the person they appointed to guard their fields, and they called him the king. The word king was actually a designation then given to people to someone who was appointed to guard the crops.
대부나 편주도 고와 제바 대송 위치도 랑게 대부기 아니 투자 랑안진에 아니 신승화 먹고 받아 자유시 타냐 재미봐 인베스 초전 주제도 주바 세스템 바제 람 메라자세 주마비 초지 전 대비 주자 대비 전도 주와 임실에서 주마비 초지 전 대비 주자 대비 전도 주와 임실 자와 탐자 나왕시 측바 메르바타지 된다왜 자보기 자와 탐자라 나왕시 측바 메르바타서 강함대로 자와니 언도 잘라라래 줄 세들라 자와 탐자 나왕시 측바 메르바타 강함대 내 강한 자와대 제바부터로 좋아 테르주와 자와니 직대반남지 왕 제바분이도 제시 꿰와라라래바레스 라레베 테주고 비셔.
So here then, how can it be appropriate for you, the king, to feel arrogant when you are a servant of a community of many people and paid with a sixth of the harvest? It is inappropriate to claim proudly, I control all activities. Your becoming the agent of an action depends upon your being placed in control, an appointed agent by the people. For instance,
맨날 제외 전에 제가 먹고 와라양 아자 메르바시노 스티바레스 유집 잡고 왔잖아 제외 전에 제가 몰래 제가 먹고 와라 아자 메르바시노.
So the example, or when a servant is put in charge of a particular task, his master depends on him to do it, but this dependence does not justify haughtiness and arrogance or pride on the servant's part.
야, 다 저기 전다와라 민다와 미리발에 치니. 다 노르도와다 두발라 왕예베스. 너想了拍动我的，除了对吧？那往外边去把每日把你，其他所家拖吧，也不动不身体性，也不动不身体性啊，也不动不身体性。这不动不身体性，这不几家几钱呢？当你动啊，不念动是，这不给俺你先了拿动我汤，然后拿出对把那往外一边唱，对把那往外一边，俺你吃把这所先呐。
So next topic is that how it's inappropriate to feel haughty or arrogant because you're able to give wealth, and you're also able to you have the power to accumulate wealth or control wealth as well. It's improper to be arrogant about that. And here someone might say, well, pride is appropriate because a king controls the giving and obtainment of wealth. The answer to that is that when those in his care receive their due, they think of their master as the giver. When the master gives what is to be given, he thinks with conceit, I am the giver.
기타 소자 토토바 세데 기타 겨우기 소자기 소아체위 소 랑기 아니 다 심증바서는 요번에 생제 심증바 체와래 중위 아니 로보소 토토바 포진바나 아니 장이 마와당 제바보 동화선바 티신투 시가나 소자 기타 소자 퇴바 제보 동화선 티신
So then, when those who are in the king's care receive their annual wages due for service rendered, they think of themselves as inferior and of their master as the giver. Their master with conceit and arrogance thinks, I am the giver, when he gives those in his care the wealth that is to be given.
你看说的，绝不增加钱钱呢，当你动画保年保了用是绝不给动画部三把提醒图，这些是吧？呢，绝不说句错。我的增加钱呗，就把钱吧呢，绝不增加钱钱呢。要不太大，你动画部你们都弄些车把每日的，你当你动画部你弄动画部。弄些的，动画部都弄些车把每日的，别那苦了，让人几百，然后动画部车把洗了，
So so when the master feels conceit and arrogance that I am the giver, when he gives those in his care the wealth to be given, this is inappropriate, and it's feeling proud like that and arrogant because of being is like being a benefactor is like it's just like paying wages to people who are employees. It's like being arrogant about that.
啥的呢？什么都有有了浪家把了，吃把每日把呢，吃把马上把呢，吃把每日把呢，现那么今年东安呢，去了亲戚老多产，现今来季错缺季，我看个结把出入，假如有那么了，俺那让我都浪家呗，俺那我这吃把，俺家去人，去人说钱呐。
So the next point is that it's inappropriate to be arrogant because of your ability to enjoy all sorts of desirable things, and this is the person might say, well, this kind of pride is maybe a little too weak for its arrogance is appropriate because a king is free to enjoy all sorts of objects. And then the answer to that's given in the verse. That which you wrongly regard others consider a source of suffering. Living by working for others, what causes you pleasure?
我这把每日把它说说都比写了当担心，俺不俺的土啊，女土啊，现那么的，俺的看现那么的呢，东安呢，是啊，俺不土啊，现那么的东安的呢。家不去了亲戚老多产，是家我去了亲戚老，等我拼出去就产不起。
So then this is what wrongly appears as a cause for the superlative happiness to you, O king, the best kind of happiness, is seen as a source of suffering by those with discriminating wisdom and disciplined senses. Since you experience
oh yeah, 咱们都把这个就没人把它，就是说忙不所谓来的，就是说忙不所谓来的，东啊爬起没把鸟为是，现在来的错就搞我看起结巴出入谁干了，就是说忙不所谓来的，东啊爬起没把鸟为，现在来的俺的错过我缺了是假如我就看个结巴出，比如。古巴土民主义被切了，是古巴土民主义被切了，现在啦，搞我看个结巴出入，是。
So since you experience uninterrupted suffering in the process of protecting large communities of people and must live by working for others, it is not a cause of happiness, not a cause only for happiness. Because, and the reason for this is that it's actually what you're doing. All of this work is a source of all kinds of misfortune for oneself. It's a great deal of how can this cause you pleasure when it is a source of many problems?
别那别他你平面上抢了抢把心喽，别那根本拆白这边来说搞完了，搞没人把心喽是呀。
So the example for this is like when one craves for women, liquor, and so forth. It's not really a source of happiness, but suffering and misfortune. It is inappropriate, for instance, to feel glad at being appointed to punish thieves.
但是我今天送我不应该吃把没人把啦。今天今天送我不送家啥的，那就呢，这个这个这往去，这个先去吃他们。 요데 송도 자부 지된 송와 보예배 아니 트바 뭐 가자 치르레잖아.
Then the next point is that why it's inappropriate to feel arrogant because one is the guardian of the world or protector of all of the people in the kingdom. And then someone might say, well, it's appropriate for a king to be haughty or arrogant because he is the protector, guardian of all of the people in that realm. Then the reply to that is in verse 80. When a ruler seems to be the protector of his people as well as protected, why be proud because of one thing? Why not be free of pride because of free from pride because of the other?
오야 다 대담지 지대지 송화보여비 임바 대담지 안에 쳐봐 매일봐 자고 지대치니 송화보당 송화보임배 트나 지대치니 송화탕 세들이 송화보임배 트나 지대배 마소나 아니 지대배 마소나 자고라 참매배 아니 가서로 가서 지된 뒤니 소와 보송자 사다 나주나 근데 지된배 마소나 자고 참매배 지된비 송자 사다 니장 나와 주나 송자 사다 나주나 송자 사다 나주 주지기 지바 아니 지바제기 주지기 지바유지 지디 송와 인비 주 현지 지바단 차와
So a king may feel proud because he protects his people, but it also appears that the ruler himself is protected by the people, since he could not be the king. He could not be king unless the people protected him. In that case, why should the king be arrogant because of his protection of the people and because of this one thing? Why not be free from arrogance because oneself is being protected? It is inappropriate to feel pride or arrogance in that situation. For example, it's inappropriate for a husband and wife to feel arrogant for taking care of each other when they look after each other. They shouldn't feel one is superior to the other.
가대절라 미게주 대나절라 조상군 세 가대자고 안에 끼고 보다를 쫑와게 안에 쏘남제래서 유지 안에 가서 유종게 끼고 보다를 쫑와게 쏘남제 입에 주발해서 셴나.
So example that's given for that is like a forest and a lion in the forest. The forest takes care of the lion and the lion guards the forest. This leads to the next point, which is that it's not appropriate to feel pride because one has the merit to serve as the protector of living beings. And this is here someone might think pride is appropriate because a king has the merit of protecting everyone as if they were his own children. And the reply to that is that those in each caste prefer their own work. Thus, a living is hard to find. If you become non-virtuous, good rebirths will be scarce for you.
다 이거는 라라라 다다 니망하기 아니 주바 셰체베 뒤니망 그 주바 셰체베 참설어서 와 리군지란 나네 라랑게 레라 가베 세가 리군나네 라라라 가베 칭매바 초와남 예가베서 까증매바 초와남 예가베바 가베 초남 예바가 스르 배조매바 마 칭매바 초와남 예가베 파지 미덴바를 미게와라 주베 파지 미덴바 미게와라 주베 가데 최대다게 소남지 주지 최대다게 소남지 주지 초밥부 이나스 어다 초밥 이야 다고 자고 표고 초밥부 이나 니비야 주자 초밥부 주와야 켜라 미거워 주에 대나 켜라 좋아 상복 꿰배 주바 미리서 세가라 가데 켜라 미거서 대나 켜라 조상권
So then the reason underlying the verse there is that at present, most people, when people are strongly involved in the five degenerations, this is the time period during which the people and world and life, conditions of life are deteriorating, most are untrustworthy and engaged in non-virtue, because in each caste, such as the Brahmin caste and so forth, people prefer their own work, and it is therefore difficult to make a living without any problems. When you seize a sixth part of their merit, this was addressed to the king, when you, O king, seize a sixth part of their merit, you become non-virtuous, because you also seize a sixth part of their ill deeds. Since good rebirths will therefore be scarce for you, arrogance is inappropriate.
Oh yeah, it's
just like a leper who, instead of taking medicine that they ought to take, wants to drink milk and eat fish. We'll stop there for now.
박찬지 탄다고야 뭐도 단도만도.